There we go. So I've just let everybody know I'm recording this. So what we can do is at the end of it all, we can email you a copy of this. So if you need to listen to it again or go over anything, we can send that to you probably tomorrow. Okay. Hey Marnie, how are you?
Good, thank you. How are you, Alan?
Very well, thanks, pal. I'm still letting people in. Lots of people join. I think we've got about over 70 people registered. So it might be 5 or 10 minutes before they're all in. So we'll give it another couple of minutes if that's okay with everybody, and then we'll get started then. There we go. Okay. I know you might think I'm distracted here. I've got another screen I've got to kind of let everybody in as well. So still coming in. Lots of people tonight. That's good. Cool. Okay, you've been working hard today, Andy?
Yeah, I had quite a lot on in the rain this morning. It wasn't too bad in the afternoon, right enough, but
It's been kind of
busy.
wild, right enough.
It's busy just now. I don't know if you're the same, but I think this is the best year so far. Everyone's got dogs, so.
Yeah, are you still finding sort of I don't know we use the expression COVID dogs, but I know that we had a big influx throughout the whole of the UK. I think
Mhm.
people getting dogs, and you finding that as well, Andy?
Yeah, it's good. We're pretty much at capacity most weeks, which is good. So long may it continue. Obviously, over Christmas was a bit quiet, always is.
Aye.
But as soon as we hit, after the new year, we've just been flat out right through, so
Good enough.
it's
Good.
good.
Okay, just to introduce myself and Andy as well. My name's Allan Ritchie. I'm from Clan Dog. Most people will know that. Andy, who I'm talking to on the screen here as well. Andy's business is called Honoris Gundogs, and Andy's specialist subject is not only gun dogs and working dogs, but he also does sort of protective dogs as well, protection dogs as well, which he's kind of getting into, and he's very good at as well. So I think the purpose of this webinar is just to help people, both Andy and I, through our professions, find that most people who have a working dog breed, vast majority of people don't actually use them for, not everybody wants to go shooting and killing things, I understand that. But the purpose of this webinar is to, I'll just mute somebody here, is to help people who have working dog breeds, and they kind of get stuck a little bit because they don't understand why their dogs do certain things on a daily basis. And the vast majority of times it's because we're not fulfilling that dog's breed traits, if you like. So obviously a hunting dog wants to hunt, and if we're not actually using them for hunting, we have to try and fulfill their needs in other ways. And that's what Andy and I are here to help you with tonight. Okay. So I hope that kind of helps you a little bit. So Andy, how about if we just actually start with that, just to start discussing, we're not going to, we're going to kind of generalize a little bit. So when we talk about, it's not just gun dog breeds, working dog breeds themselves, dogs have been bred over many years to do specific jobs for us humans. And when we bring them into the home and we don't fulfill those breed trait needs that are kind of inbuilt in them, they can get a bit frustrated, and that comes out in their daily routines, which people call dog problems. In actual fact, the vast majority of it is just dog behaviours, and we don't know how to deal with that. So hopefully, Andy and I will be able to go through and be able to help you with that tonight. So how about if we just discuss, Andy, the natural gun dog breeds such as retrieving, hunting, tracking, and highlight how sometimes these behaviours can come out in daily lives.
Yeah. So, I mean, I guess for me, I don't know if it's the same for you, but sometimes I'll get an inquiry of someone saying, "Oh, my dog's reactive. I've heard gun dog training is really good to stimulate the dog and maybe counteract the problem." And I've never found that to be the case. So, if you've got a problem with behavior, you're better tackling the behavior head on. And yeah, if you want to do gun dog training and add stimulation to the dog's life, that's great. I would encourage that. But I wouldn't sell the idea to anyone that doing a job with the dog will fix, a real issue out with that, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we talking about sort of behaviours. What kind of behaviours do you experience with people who come along to you for help?
Well, just the likes of, my dog's reactive on the lead to other dogs. And then the first thing the first thing they say maybe is, you know, can we try gun dog training to try and fix this problem? I'm like, well, you're welcome to come along for gun dog training, but I can 99.9% guarantee you it's not going to fix the reactivity. We better come in along for a behavioural session. We can address that issue, and then once your dog's more stable around other dogs, we can then look at the gun dog training sort of thing, rather than just assuming that, you know, my dog needs to work and then this will fix all the problems out with that. If that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I find a lot of people who will contact me to say, you know, have a specific problem with their dog. Just mute somebody there, sorry. When in actual fact, when you actually have a bit of time with that person, you find that there's a list of things that they probably need to address before they can address the problem that they're expressing to us.
Yeah.
So Andy's right, you know, let's look at the root of the problem. We can find out why the dog is reactive, but what Andy's saying is let's address that first before we can move on to anything else. Because I don't, you know, if you're going to do gun dog training, will it be actually to train your dog to the gun, or to actually just have to be able to fulfill their needs? If they have other issues, we need to address them before we can move on to anything else.
Yeah,
Separately.
separately. So you could address the issues separately and also do gun dog training alongside it. But don't be fooled by the idea that stimulating your dog's going to fix the other issues. You
Absolutely.
know? And I think a lot of people think, you know, I've got a Labrador, so maybe I've got a problem here because it's not retrieving or it's not hunting. And it's very much not the case. You've got a problem for other issues, but yeah, you can work the dog and it would enhance the relationship. But it's normally not the answer for the behavioural issues that you've got, is what I've found.
Oh, sorry, I'm just trying to mute a couple of people here, just we've got background noise. So if anybody is here with there we go. There's a couple of people just turned off there just now. Good, okay. We will, by the way, folks, we will open up the floor. Andy and I will open up the floor to specific questions that we hope to help you with later on. But we're just going to go through a few kind of generic problems that Andy and I have found over the years that, in actual fact, when we go through this, there's a lot of things that might be solved for you without you having to ask the question at the end. But if there is, we can deal with that later on.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of people, and you'll maybe find the same, Andy, that a lot of people have this thing about, you know, I've got to walk my dog, and they emphasize or they prioritize physical exercise with a dog. And I've always found that giving a dog mentally stimulating exercises, and we can include that as well with regards to searching for things, finding things, retrieving. When we get a dog to engage with us and we be part of their equation, then we become more interesting than the surroundings. So I always say that mentally stimulate a dog can far quicker tire a dog out than any physical exercise. So those of you who have spaniels, for example, we all know the Cocker Spaniels can do 50, 100 miles a day, 5 days a week, and do it the next day. You know, but you know, when we start tapping into a part of the dog's brain that they don't normally use because we're engaging with them, we're asking them to concentrate and think about things, then that can tire them out too. We all know that, you know, a tired dog's a happy dog. So, you know, mentally stimulating exercise is kind of a big part of the equation as well. I always say that's equally as important as physical exercise.
Yeah, and the thing is as well, it doesn't need to take any longer. So say you go out for a half an hour walk, you can actually include a lot of that stuff within the walk. So you're not adding more time to your day. Or even when you feed the dog, you know, rather than just giving the dog the food out the bowl, you can do a lot of stuff for food. I mean, specifically for gun dog training, you could teach hand signals, you can teach heel walking, you can teach memories, you can teach lots of things with food, which adds more stimulation to the dog, but it doesn't necessarily take more time. So it's not like you need to walk the dog and then add that on top. You can do it during the walk, basically, you know. But
Absolutely.
yeah, totally agree. That's how to really, because you'll never tire a spaniel out by physical, you know, or the working labs, they'll go all day and night if you let them. So the mental stuff's key, I would say, you know.
Absolutely, and what I think Andy's talking about, you know, we use food as a reward, and I always say that find what your particular dog's reward hierarchy is. What I mean by that is some dogs will really be keen on sausages or cheese, or some dogs will work for any kind of little bit of kibble or whatever. But identifying what really works for your dog, and I always say to people, don't devalue that, because if you give your dog, many people give the dog more than one meal a day. It could be a couple of meals a day, breakfast or whatever. And because our lives look differently depending on your workloads, etc., then you're kind of missing a trick a little bit. So if you have time on a Saturday morning to do a bit of work with your dog, rather than give them a big bowl of breakfast for free, then why don't you take that breakfast out with you and engage with the dog? So if your dog is hungry because it's not had his breakfast, you can use food as a reward for actually engaging with the dog, so that it's learning new things, using mentally stimulating exercises, and is more keen to work for you, rather than take your dog out having had its breakfast and ask for it to do something for a food reward when it's actually had its meal. Andy, I've kind of lost you about. Are you okay? Have you lost? Oh, there you are. Okay.
Yeah.
Do you agree with that? I mean, I know there's a
Yeah,
lot.
100%. Like, so my young pups, I've got.
Is that webinar that I wanted to join?
Oh yeah.
Sorry, I just muted that person. Go ahead, Andy. Sorry.
So I've got a pup there, German Shepherd. He'll be 11 weeks and he's never been fed out a bowl. So whenever he gets fed 3 times a day, and he's always learning something, engaging, stimulating the dog. As soon as it comes out the crate, we're working, we're doing stuff with food, he's getting rewarded. So he doesn't know what it's like to be fed out a bowl. Don't get me wrong, if I didn't have the time, I would occasionally feed him out the bowl, but you're missing a great opportunity there just to, build the bond, teach the dog something. And it doesn't take much longer. And, putting a bowl down or just hand feeding the dog, teaching sit, down, heel, recalls, everything like that. I think it's a great opportunity.
Absolutely, Andy. And I say to people, it doesn't have to be the whole. If you feed your dog dry kibble, for example, and you've got a certain quantity of it, and you've only got a certain amount of time of the day to do 10 or 15 minutes of training, then you might only go through half the breakfast. But when you come back, you can still give them the rest of the breakfast in the bowl. But I think what Andy and I are trying to say is that gather up all your rewards and save them for being able to teach your dog something, rather than give your dog a big bowl of food, for example, for free, and then they're not interested in you because they've already had their breakfast. So don't miss a trick.
And that's a good point. So if your dog's due a lot of kibble, and you only really want to be training your dog for a short amount of time, and you've still got a lot of kibble left, what I do is jackpot the dog. So maybe I'll do a down to finish, and as soon as the dog downs, then I'll empty the whole allowance onto the dog, so the dog never knows when the jackpot's coming, if that makes sense. So sometimes we'll do it earlier in the session, so think, oh, I might get a big one here, no, and then keep going. So jackpotting the dog's quite good. So if you've only got time, if you've only got an extra couple of minutes, you could do a sit, you could do a down, you could do a heel, and then you could jackpot the dog. But at least the dog's gone through a sequence of commands, and then it's got the big reward, if that makes sense.
Absolutely, that's an expression I've never heard, Andy. So
Yeah.
I mean, and it makes sense. The jackpot. So
yeah, and then the dog's always thinking, oh, this one could be the jackpot. This one could be the jackpot, and then it just brings that a wee bit more engagement.
Exactly, and again, what Andy said there, what I picked up on is that by altering when you do that jackpot, as Andy's described it, that dog never really knows when it's coming. So you're getting a better result from that. And I always say that there's 3Ds for me. There's 3Ds in dog training: distance, distraction, and duration. And when we teach a dog a certain new trick, obviously timing is important. It's a hard thing that for professionals to actually describe to somebody, but timing is important, and that's you kind of get that through experience. So marking a dog's behavior. So if we ask for a sit, and as soon as it does, we say yes, that's the mark, and then the reward comes later. So the time difference between marking and rewarding can be extended in small increments. Is that what you're talking about, Andy?
Yeah, I use marker training. So for example, if you feed raw, it's very beneficial to marker train. So for example, I would maybe have the raw on the worktop in the kitchen, and I could work the dog through a sequence of commands away from the bowl. And then as soon as I mark it, it then gives me time to go over to the bowl and issue the reward. Whereas if you're training the old-fashioned way, the reward has to come straight away. But if you marker train, it gives you time to go across. You can get a bit of raw out. You can do this, and you can wipe your hands and carry on, sort of thing. So yeah, I always marker train now. I think it's a great system.
Yeah, exactly. Good. Okay, mate. Physical exercise. Obviously, we talked about we were just talking about there for me the equal need for mentally stimulating exercise versus just physical exercise. But obviously, there's a need for physical exercise as well, because I found over 30 years of doing one-to-ones with people, not one person. I'm now just over 9,000 people since 1991 I've helped. And one of the questions I ask them is, what do you feed your dog? And people will tell me either a brand name, or they'll say wet, or they'll say dry. But in actual fact, very, very few, I mean, really very few people have actually understood what they're putting into their dog. And I'm talking about energy levels. And we've got to try and balance out what energy we're putting into the dog versus what they're expending. And if we pump a dog full of energy, which is a certain type of carbohydrate and protein, and they're not actually getting to burn that off, then it'd be like us. I mean, we know that our athletes pump themselves full of protein when they're training to muscle build, etc., and be able to extend their training But have a look at the type of food that you're putting in your dog as well, and understands that a high protein. The lady in Glasgow not so long ago who was putting 32% protein into their spaniel, an 18-month-old spaniel, and it was getting 2 lead walks around the block a day. Now, she couldn't understand why that dog could not sit still in the house.
That's high protein, isn't it? That's all. That must be puppy. She must have been feeding puppy food there, with that level of protein.
To be honest, Andy, I've never actually seen. I mean, I usually give my own working dogs about 26-28% protein when they're working and be able to burn it off. And I break it down to about 18% protein in the summer when they're not working, just to try and get that balance. And again, obviously, doing what we do, we still exercise our dogs, but a lot of people are just unaware. And so I would ask everybody here to look on the back of if it's dried food, for example, you'll find it in tiny little writing, and what you're looking for is crude protein. And that is sorry, I'm just admitting more people coming in here just now. And that is an energy. So it's okay and you'll probably not find a dry food under about 18% protein. I've never found any like that. For example, a yellow bag of pedigree chum is 26% protein, and a tin of wet pedigree chum is 6%. It's a completely different food. It's a different energy that's going into the dog. So it's okay to not be doing your dog doing miles and miles a day, but if you are filling them full of energy, then they've got to burn that off. So you're kind of not helping the situation by not knowing what's going into the dog. So I just ask people to be aware of what they're putting into the dog,
Yeah, for sure. With the physical exercise, I always, if I do a home visit with maybe a 12-week-old pup and that, I just find that people are just doing too much physical exercise and too much stimulation. And what their plan is that they tire the pup out and then they'll get peace. But actually what they're doing is they're setting the level of, this older dog. So when this dog grows up, it's used to being stimulated most of the day, and it's going to be expecting it, and they're actually creating a dog that's never going to switch off. So with my pups, they switch on, they switch off, they switch on. So they're in the crate for a couple of hours, they're out for half an hour, we're training, we're stimulating, we're teaching them something, and they're back in. So they're constantly switching off and switching on, whereas people just let their dogs free roam round, their 12-week-old pups, and when they get up and move room, the pup's up and it's following them. So they're breaking the sleep. They're not getting the sleep that the pup needs, and then they can get tired, and then this is when all the bad biting and that happens, So definitely when they're younger, I make a point of, learning the dog to switch off.
Absolutely. I mean, teaching a dog to do nothing.
Yeah,
is an absolute
100%.
value.
And my pups are very good at that. And then see when they're older, they're quite lazy unless they know that we're going out for training or working, then they switch. But in the house, they're very calm, very lazy. Even kennels, they're not. It's just how you bring them up. I think that's really important.
Yeah, absolutely. And a lot of people, especially people who are kind of new to dog ownership, I don't like to say ownership. I live with a dog. I was supposed to own a dog. I have a different kind of view in it, but you know what we're talking about. So many people, especially if we've got a family. So we've got a busy house, we've got a high energy household. We might have mum and dad who are in the house for different reasons, who are maybe some works from home. We've got kids who maybe bring their pals round to play in the garden, and we've got this energy going on all the time, and the dog never gets a chance. And sometimes we kind of look at the young dog or the puppy, if you like, as a plaything. Maybe we do a wee bit hard there, whatever, but we're actually asking the dog to do things all the time. It's so important to get a puppy to rest. It's important. I mean, a young puppy, a really young puppy, should be sleeping about 20 hours a day, but sometimes they never get the chance to do that. And they get overtired, they get overstimulated, and that's when the problems arise. It's pretty much what Andy was saying there, I think.
Yeah, 100%. And it's so important that you set the bar as soon as as soon as you start. Whereas a lot of people think, oh, they're just cute, they're just settling in, we'll just let them free roam, we'll let them do this. But then it'll be harder to come back from that. So from day one, it should just be how the routine's going to be, and it just makes life so much easier. Like if I do a home visit and the dog's 6 months and they've never been used to switching off during the day, that's a lot harder for them to get that now than it is when if they started it from day dot, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I always emphasize the fact that it's so important for a dog to be able to do nothing, just let them grow. And even not just talking about just a young puppy as well. It's so important because if we've got a high energy dog, it's because we've never allowed them or taught them that doing nothing is a skill in itself.
100%. And then people mistake it, oh, it's the type of dog I've got, then I need to walk it 5 hours a day. But what they fail to realize is that they've created this. And I'm not saying on every case,
Yeah.
but a lot of cases they've created it because the dog's been constantly stimulated as it's been growing up in the house. And you might not mean to stimulate the dog, but even if the dog's lying, sleeping in the lounge and you get up and go to the toilet, normally the puppy's like, oh, what are we doing? Where are we going? You've broken the sleep and the dog's switched on again. So the dog's switching on, switching off too much during the day.
Yeah, I have a lot of people, especially in this area where I live, which is sort of mountain biking land, and they like to take their dog. Um, they're using their bike trip along forest tracks to exercise their dog at the same time, or they're joggers. And what they do is they end up creating an athlete. But
Yes.
if they maybe have a Saturday or Sunday off, and they say my dog will not sit still at the weekends or during the week or whatever, but they don't know it's Saturday or Sunday or their day off. Dogs don't have certain days off, so that becomes their routine. So it's essential to be able to build that balance with regards to resting is kind of the thing that we're talking about there as well.
Yeah, I like that. Creating an athlete, that's exactly what I was meaning. Yeah.
I mean, I don't know about you, Andy, and one of the biggest things so I will maybe be contacted by somebody saying, Alan, can you give me help with fill in the brackets, whatever that thing may be. And let's talk about pulling on lead, which I'm sure Andy will agree that's probably one of the biggest things, or won't recall. But I'll go along to their home and I find the dog doesn't have any boundaries. I tend to find that we give our dogs what we think they need. And we forget that their dogs, they have different needs and they have different they don't have human emotions or a human way of thinking. And if we allow our dogs complete freedom of the house, some people will say to me, my dog's got separation anxiety, and I don't understand why, because when I go to work or I leave the house for a couple of hours, for whatever reason, I give the dog complete freedom of the house so that they can they're doing it for good reasons, so that they can get comfortable wherever they want. When actual fact, what happens is that the dog becomes stressed and they'll start running around the house looking for that person. And the flip side is true. To make a safe area, a constant safe area for that dog is far better than allowing it to sit up in the back of the settee looking at the window.
Yeah, it gives the dog's brain more momentum to build the more space it's got, right?
Correct. Exactly that, Andy.
Yeah, and they probably, a lot of my clients anyway, they've got social anxiety, but up till the dog was 6 months, there was always someone in the house. So it's so important that you make a point, even when they're younger. I've got kennels with dogs, and I always make a point with that with this 11 week-old pup, it has to spend time on its own. So it comes in the house, or it'll be in the kennel on its own, or it'll be in the back of the car when I'm traveling somewhere on its own. They have to cope on their own. Whereas if they've always been brought up with someone or other dogs, and then all of a sudden that's not there, then it's a huge deal. Whereas, like I said, if you start as you mean to go on, then it's so much easier.
Absolutely, and obviously we're still talking about COVID. As dog trainers, we're still talking about COVID. I know that we've all been out of it for a while, but those dogs are still coming through. And there was a period of time that we all know that we didn't have the ability to do what a young dog, a puppy, needs to do, is to be handled by people, experience all those, go to the cafe, to see the street, the traffic, etc., etc. But still, what's happening now is, I find, is that there's still a lot more people now working from home, and just because we can be with our dogs all the time doesn't mean to say we should be. Simply, if people work in an area of the living room and they normally have the dog lying at their feet because they can. But what's happened is the fact that the dog has not been, as what Andy was addressing there, it's not been taught, trust me, I'm not going to abandon you, trust me, I'm always coming back. Simply to put in the kitchen for a little while, or a separate room, or the hall in a comfortable position, so that it's not kind of tied to your apron strings all the time. There's a real, and this is all for the dog, by the way, these are not punishments. This is to, we don't want to be able to leave it, or don't want to have to leave our dogs in in a position of anxiety or stress. It's a skill for the dog.
I think as well, if you go back years, and it's quite a few years now, when I was 15, 14, dogs in households were much less of a priority, right?
Yeah.
So, but we had, in my opinion, they were much more balanced that way. Whereas now we raise dogs up, and they're the center of most people's lives, which is fine, and I get that, but it brings a lot of imbalance to the dog. Whereas, with me growing up with my mum, we had dogs in the house, and they were very low on the priority list. We didn't, we loved them and we cared for them, but they weren't, what about the dog? Let's involve the dog, let's do this. They were treated more like dogs. And they were just naturally balanced. And then, you just get much less problems that way. Whereas now, people are sleeping with their dogs, they're going everywhere with the dogs, they can't leave the dogs on their own. And that's fine, but you have to be prepared to get an imbalanced dog from that if you're going to live with a dog.
Absolutely. And what I would say is, when Andy just said there, we treat them more like dogs, he means that in a respectful way. Because what he's actually saying is that we understand dogs, their needs, as opposed to, when I had a dog training school in boarding kennels, there was a vet who used to use boarding kennels to look after his dog when he was on holiday. And he used to say to some clients, and I'll not name the other kennel, he would only kind of recommend 2 kennels, me being one of them, and another one. And he used to say to them, if you want your dog looked after a kid, go to those kennels. If you want your dog to be looked after as a dog, go and see Allan. I was never quite sure how to take that, but he meant it in a good way. So yeah, I think it's a lot to do with people's outlook or their opinion about that,
Yeah, and it's just about getting the balance, like not everyone gets a dog so they can keep it low on their priorities. Like, I get that, but you have to do certain things to make sure that the dog's going to be balanced, secure, and and it's going to be brought up in a sort of level mindset, rather than separation anxiety and it's fearful of this. The dogs have got to learn to cope on their own sort of 4 paws.
Right, exactly, mate. Training obedience. I want to share some tips and techniques effectively for training gun dog breeds specifically, and obviously including positive reinforcement methods. Consistency of commands. That's a big one. I'm sure you'll find as well, Andy, and something I go through with people. If I'm sitting with a family, I've maybe got mum and dad and 2 or 3 teenage kids. And what I do is I give them a bit of pen and paper each. And I say, right, guys, no conferring. Everybody write down on a bit of pen and paper how you communicate with your dog. And then I get bits of paper back. And I say that dad says, come, mum says, come here. Teenage girl says this way. Somebody else says, let's go. We all know what we're talking about. And dog training for me is not hard work. It's a mindfulness. It's an awareness. So consistency is really what I'm talking about. Because if we've got one human and one dog, we've got one relationship for the dog to learn. When we start adding on different family members, and bear in mind, we're not clones, remember, but we've got to make an effort to try and be fair to the dog and be consistent. So I always ask people to write down sit equals sit. Do you call that thing a crate, a cage, or a bed? Because everybody has variables. Is it going to become? Is it going to become here? No matter what it is, we've got to be consistent. Do you find that as well, Andy? People,
100%, yeah. But even with the same person, the recall command can change. So what I mean by that is, right, okay, recall your dog now, and they'll go, Nero, come. And the next time they'll say, Nero, here. Or then they'll say here, or, and then they're not even aware that they're doing it.
exactly. And it is, and it's not until when you're standing doing a one-to-one with somebody, I always say to them, what did you say?
Yeah.
And they go, what do you mean?
Yeah.
So it's
And
about
then they put the
tuning in.
dog into heel, but then they'll say, come, and they're putting them in the heel, or and it's just and then when you show them and let them hear it back to themselves, then the light bulb moment goes on.
Yeah, exactly. So be consistent. Now, it doesn't matter to a dog, because when we speak English to our dogs, for example, we have what I would describe as unrealistic expectations. We expect them to know that come here, this way, let's go. We also, I think through politeness, we preempt every command or cue, however we want to look at it, with our dog's name. So auto come, auto sit, auto no, auto leave it, auto bed. That becomes one noise. So auto come is one noise to a dog. So I always say, if your dog's at any kind of distance, or even if they're sitting next to you, if they're not looking at you, I would ask for my dog's attention first, and then I'd drop his name. So if he's sitting next to me looking elsewhere, I might say auto. Wait until he connects with me, and then ask him what I want to do. Sit. Or maybe auto, if he's looking elsewhere, drop the name, and then give him, very simple, come. So adding on your dog's name first to everything then becomes a little bit more confusing.
And that's so is that, did you say that that's something that you do, or that you would encourage? Would you encourage them to get the dog's attention first?
I do, Andy, but I would
Yeah.
say to get to just use our name, because we
Yeah,
use our dog's name.
100%. And the good thing about that is, if you're planning on getting another dog, then it makes life so much easier, because Otto knows when you're speaking to him and when you're not. And then you just do the same with the other pup. So if the other pup's, Nero or whatever, then you can actually speak to the two individual dogs separately in the same room.
Exactly.
So, yeah, yeah, 100%.
Okay. So yeah, I mean, when I say to people, let's have some boundaries, because the vast majority of people live, as my own dog does, in the house with us. And sometimes I say to people, one of the questions I ask people when I do a one-to-one is, we all say, for example, if we've got a license and we drive a car, we have to go through a learning phase. Somebody had to teach us how to drive that car. So, and I say to people, if you want your dog to know a skill, we have to teach it. And I ask them the question, so when do you do your dog training? And people will say, some people, actually, I had a one-to-one yesterday, and they said, well, actually, I haven't done for a long while. They don't think they're training at all. Some people will say, well, I went to puppy classes 6-8 months ago, a year ago. Some people will say, well, in the morning I take my dog out and I do X, Y, Z in the garden, and after work I take the dog to the field and I do heel work or whatever. And in their minds, those are the times that they're training their dog. But what happens is, when they come back in the home and they unclip the dog's lead, the human, switches off, and they will give what I describe as throwaway commands, things that they don't think are important. So the dog might be in the living room while they're watching telly, and they just want to give the dog a wee clap or a cuddle. And they'll say, Otto, come. The dog hears you, he understands you, but it's playing with a toy, and the human decides, it's not important, I'll give him a clap later on. But the amount of time that we spend with our dogs in the home, in comparison with what they think train them outside, is huge. And if you're giving your dog 20, 30 throwaway commands a day, and you're giving them recalls that you never follow through, sit when you never follow through, and then we take our dog outside and we expect them to be like that. If the dog could talk, say, you tell me to come all the time, Alan, but if you don't, you never do anything about it. Why would it come now? Because this is a high distraction zone. It's harder to control our dogs. So be aware of the fact that when you're in your dog's presence, you are teaching them something positive or negative pretty much at all times.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. So I always say to most of my clients, like, how you live with the dog and how the dog sees you within the household will give you the biggest impact outside. So most people think, oh, my dog's great in the house. The only issues I have is when I'm outside, so therefore I need to work on the stuff outside. But actually, that's not the case. The relationship is based on how you live with the dog in the house, and that'll give you the leadership skills that you need to lead the dog when you're away from the house, if that makes sense, which is pretty much what you're saying. You can't let the dog get away with much in the house, otherwise why can't it get away with that outside, right?
Exactly, and it's so much harder. I mean, your homes, I always describe it as a classroom. You've
Yeah,
got your dog's undivided attention. They've got no other distractions. They're happy to engage with you because there's bugger all else going on, sort of
Yeah.
thing.
boring
But when we
environment. Yeah,
don't view that as an important part of our living with our dog, and it's the vast majority of the time we spend with a dog, we cannot expect a dog to be fully tuned in with us when we go outside, and it's really hard. There's squirrels, there's rabbits, there's other dogs, there's you name it, you know what's out there, guys. So please
Yeah.
be fair to your dogs and understand that if you do ask your dog to do something with the home, it's just as important as that you follow through. So I say to people, don't bombard your dog with commands and cues and do this every 5 minutes. But when you do find yourself saying, I want you to go to your bed, it is the bed and not somewhere else. If you do decide to say come, then you have to follow through. So if it's important, follow through. If it's not important, don't tell your dog to do anything, because then they can't defy you and you're
Yeah.
not diluting your own training, you know?
Yeah, yeah, and if you've not got the energy to back it up, then just forget it. Don't bother speaking to the dog, right?
Exactly, exactly. A lot, I mean, I don't know about you, Andy, but I find a lot of people who have a gun dog breed, and just other dogs as well, right enough, but the behaviours that they describe are easily identified as boredom. So digging in the garden, they're ripping up the bed, that kind of stuff. You know, it's usually easy to identify because I've got this. I've got to do something. I've got to do something. You're doing nothing with me. So you know, how would you help people, Andy, to say this is what you should be doing with your dog with regards to helping them?
So for me, I think it's a balance between not allowing the bad behavior to happen. So that's where corrections would come in.
Yeah.
Also, you know, so if you're not walking the dog and stimulating the dog much, then it wouldn't be unrealistic for the dog to play up like that. But if you're doing enough stimulation work and you're training the dog and you're spending that time with the dog, then I wouldn't want or expect my dog to display those behaviors. So then that's where I would correct the behavior to let the dog that that's not what I want. You know, and I think people mistake that as, oh, maybe not exercising the dog enough, or maybe not doing this enough with the dog. But it could just be that the dog's just needing to be told no.
Exactly. I mean, and let's kind of talk about that point. This word no, which a lot of people or other trainers, whatever, and I'm not here to bash, I just don't get into that kind of stuff, whatever. But as far as I'm concerned, we were all brought up with managers, I want to describe it that way, by our mums and dads who put boundaries in place. And they only removed those boundaries as and when we earned that trust. Yes, you can stay out later. Yes, you can go to that party or wherever that thing was. And a lot of people don't like the word no. I had a lady, a good couple of years ago now, so it doesn't really matter. But the reason she called me is because her 6-month-old black lab was really erratically, just for no apparent reason at all, was kind of lunging at her. And I'd been in the home about an hour without any signs of this behaviour at all. And she moved from where we were sitting to go and put the kettle on to make a cup of tea. And the dog actually just flew out of its bed with its teeth showing and obviously showing the reason that was there. And I reacted as most of the time, and I growled, no. And the dog stopped, and I said, bed, and went back. And the lady said to me, would you mind not saying no to my dog? And I thought, okay, because she was off the positive only approach. And I had to ask her because she's a very well-educated lady with 3 kids at private school. And I said, have you ever used the word no to your 3 kids who sat very patiently and listened to this? And she said, of course. I said, well, why do you think it's so wrong to use the word no? A dog, if I growled at a dog, yes, then how is that any different from the word no? So please don't think that by actually correcting a dog in the correct way is any way harmful or whatever to your dog. So we all need to know what is right and what is wrong. If you imagine being taught, going to a new job, but the people, whoever's been told to teach you that job, only tell Allan when he's doing well, do not tell him when he's doing anything wrong. It's going to take him an awful lot longer to learn that job. I don't know what your thoughts are there.
Yeah, 100%. But I think, my point was, don't excuse bad behavior for lack of stimulation, basically. Because, if you're giving your dog reasonable amount of stimulation and training during the day, then just put it down to bad behavior that needs corrected. If you're not doing anything with your dog, then of course, you need to stimulate your dog and take your dog out and do stuff with your dog. But don't think that your dog needs even more, is what I was meaning, which is exactly what you're saying.
Exactly. Okay. Okay, guys, there's a couple of things. Andy, I don't know if you want to cover anything just now. I was literally just going to sort of nip for a
Socialization, probably.
perfect. I'm going to let Andy to talk about that for you. Alice, they're going to be about 30 seconds or so, and I can come back. All right, thanks, Andy.
Okay, so socialization, a lot of clients come and say, oh, my dog's maybe not good with other dogs, or they're reactive, or it's this, or they run up to other dogs when they're off lead. Maybe they need more socialization. But the problem is, so for me, when the pup's between sort of 8 and 12 weeks, I let my pup go up to certain dogs that I know that are good, and they get plenty of play, and they go around and play with lots of different dogs. And once I've ticked the box to say that, okay, my dog understands that other dogs can play, and it's all gentle and it's all nice, at that point, I then bring the dog away from other dogs. So I don't let them meet every single dog in the street. And the reason for that is, if you've got the habit of letting the dog meet every other dog, then your dog's going to associate every dog with a party. And what I mean by that is, when your dog's off the lead and it sees a dog in the distance, it's going to automatically assume, oh, there's the fun over there, and away it goes. And you wouldn't believe the amount of clients that come to me about, when my dog's off the lead and it sees another dog, it just bolts. And it's purely because it's got that association with other dogs of having fun. So the structure that I would have is, say I'm out Gundog training or just training with other dogs, I would make sure that the dog goes through a sequence of obedience first, and then part of the reward at the end would then be, okay, go free run and play with other dogs. So it's not about not letting the dogs play with other dogs, it's more about doing it at the right time. And I certainly wouldn't be letting them have fun and play with every dog it sees. With the German Shepherds, I always want the dogs in public to just view other dogs as very neutral. I don't want them to see other dogs as a party and something to have fun with, or a threat. I just want a neutral outlook between other dogs.
That's a good point, Andy, because I do find, and I'm sure a lot of people here might resonate with that some people feel that and Andy picked up that point. It's important that our dogs socialise, but if that is their only source of fun, and they see every dog as a plaything, and you're taking your dog to the park to run free to play with 99% of friendly dogs, then that's all they're going to get. So again, Andy goes back to getting that balance.
Yeah.
And that neutrality between dogs.
Yeah, balance. And control first. So once you've got the control, then the play can come, not the other way around.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And dogs meeting dogs is a ritual. That's why dogs meet kind of that way, in a calm manner, as opposed to some dogs that are kind of overstimulated, overexcited at seeing other dogs. They go and reason up, "Hi mate, how you doing?"
And straight into party mode. Yeah.
It causes problems,
Yeah.
Okay. Before we open up the floor to specific questions, there's a couple of people here who have written in with questions already. And if they are here, I've got a Gillian Fairbairn. So if you are here, Gillian, would you make yourself known? I've got 2 pages here, so let me see what we've got.
Oh, I'm here. I'm a
Where
bit
are you? Let me. Oh, there we go. Is your camera on, Gillian?
Sorry.
Oh, you're muted now.
Oh God.
That's okay. Where are you?
Can you hear me now?
Oh, there we go.
Hello.
Okay.
Right, sorry, I'm trying to do Zoom calls on my phone rather than my laptop.
That's all right.
Buttons.
Okay. Well, thanks for first of all being here, Gillian, and your question as well. So Gillian's got a question for us here. If you have time, my question is for the seminar is about how to best ensure good experiences all around human and dog when you bring a new puppy home. My dog is always going to be a work in progress, but he's reasonably well behaved I just want to do everything I can to give him and puppy a good life together. So any tips or advice would be great. So just to be clear, Gillian, what kind of dog have you got? And have you got two dogs here? Is it a puppy and a dog, or?
I've just got one. I'm supposed to be picking up a puppy in 5 weeks.
So are you talking about, so okay, so you're looking for advice about how to bring the new dog into the home, is that right?
Yeah, I just thought if there was any sort of do's and don'ts that you could share that might be helpful, then that would be really good.
So, hi, Gillian. I think you've been over for a session before. Is that
Yeah,
right?
that's-
Yeah. So, is it a sprocker you've got, or a springer,
No,
or
I was Raleigh.
yeah, got yeah, cool. So, yeah. So, going back to what I said originally, I think the most important thing is it's when you bring another puppy in, it's tempting to keep the dogs together all the time. So for me, I would certainly make a point very early on of creating the dog or bringing the dog away from anything like other dogs, people, and getting them used to coping on their own very early. Just in case, say something happens to your other dog, or say you want to go out for a hike with your dog and leave your dog for a couple hours, then it's so important that they're able to cope on their own. Whereas when people bring another dog into the household, I find that they just keep them with the other dog all the time. So I think it's so important to, treat them like you've only got one dog sometimes and give them that space.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. And that's definitely part of the plan at the moment. I went and picked up a crate off Facebook Marketplace last night.
So
So
what breed of dog is it you're getting?
I'm getting a large Munsterlander.
Oh, really?
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're nice dogs.
Well, I
I've had a
hope so.
couple,
We'll find
yeah.
out soon.
Yeah, yeah, that's nice. What about you, Alan? What do you think? What's your tips?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, your dogs will become friends if we, as Andy was saying, we kind of treat them as individuals. Every one of us here is individuals. We're not clones, as our dogs, even for the same breed, which obviously in this case is not. But a lot of people will say, I got another dog because I thought the first one needed company or a friend or whatever. Brought up the right way, they will become friends, but don't make that a priority. Introducing them at certain times, and they will both have different needs. So your early puppy is obviously going to need its own space so it can rest. All the stuff we've talked about before. But yeah, again, being able to take you say it was a sprocker.
A Sprawley is a Springer
Sprawley.
Collie mix.
So that Sprawley is going to have different needs than the puppy. And what Andy's saying is, you're going to have to take that one out. So use that time to say, well, we're going to teach the young puppy, to avoid separation anxiety, to be in its own for short periods of time whilst you fulfill the needs of your older dog. So Andy's right with regards to, treat them as individuals and, give them sort of their own space from time to time.
Yeah.
Okay. Does that help you, Gillian? Is there anything else?
That's really helpful. And I've been kind of thinking along those lines as well. So it's reassuring to hear that from someone that knows what they're doing a bit better than me too.
And Andy, are you and Gillian, you've had a connection before already? Have you had a
Yeah,
one?
Gillian, was it a few weeks you came over for a session, Gillian?
Yeah, that's right.
And how's it all going?
He just does it now. Like he walks along next to me, no issues. Very rarely puts foot wrong. I had him walking to heel round pets at home at the weekend.
Oh, very good.
I
Good.
should have came to see you a long time ago. It would have saved me a lot of trouble.
Well, you've learned your lesson. I'm only joking. Aye, that's good. I'm glad it's worked out.
Well, that's good. Well, obviously, you've got Andy's details, so keep in touch with Andy. I'm sure he'll keep you straight on your new journey, because it's almost like when a baby comes along in the house, it just turns your world upside down, and all the equations, everything changes. Everything that was normal before just changes. So keep in touch with Andy. I'm sure he'll keep you straight.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
All right, Julian, good.
Yeah.
Okay, and there was another one here from a Jill Hunt. Is there a Jill Hunt here? Oh, there we go. Hi, Jill. I'm going to ask you to unmute if you can, so we can hear you.
Hi,
Hi, Jill. How are you?
Hello.
I'm okay, thank you.
Thanks for coming along. Thanks for your question. I just want to read it out so that everybody understands what we're talking about too. So Jill says, I have a 4-year-old female German Shepherd who has suddenly become very reactive. Here's one for you, Andy. Barking when the doorbell rings, ignoring me when I'm out and I call her. She's massively overexcited. Even getting ready for a walk is becoming difficult as she rushes around. It's like she's suddenly forgotten everything that she's been taught. Over to you, Andy.
Thanks, Ellen.
No worries.
Is there a reset button, Gillian? So 4-year-old, and this has just happened, or is it?
Yeah.
Has it been building up over a year or so, or is it just flipped?
No, I think we got a new puppy about 4 months ago. And it's been, yeah, since then.
And what breed is your new puppy?
German Shepherd.
And is your is the 4-year-old a working line German Shepherd or a show line German Shepherd?
I have no idea.
Okay. So the issues are that she's just overexcited and that's when the doorbell goes, or is she reactive like when you're out with her, or is it only when it's in the home?
No, it's out and in the home.
So
Like say like 3 months ago, the doorbell would ring. She'd get excited. She'd go to her bed. That's what, you know, when the doorbell rings, she goes to her bed. That is like the rule, because otherwise she's bark, bark, bark. But now, yeah, just completely rushes down the stairs, jumps at the door, frightens people off basically because she sounds very ferocious.
yeah, but was she going to her bed before? You said that she was going to her bed 3 months ago when the doorbell went, right?
I used to send her to her bed when the doorbell went. Otherwise, she'd rush down the stairs and then I'd have to hold her while I was trying to open the front door. So the rule is the doorbell rings, she goes to her bed.
Okay, so, and when you sent her to her bed, was her mindset still high?
Yes.
Yeah, so the only thing that's changed is the position of the dog. So the mindset was still very high, but now she's rushing to the door, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so
So she ignores the bed command, or
yeah,
she goes there for about 2 seconds,
okay.
but then runs downstairs.
Yeah, so she ticks the box and then releases herself.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah,
She doesn't.
okay.
She should wait until I say right out, but
Yeah.
but she doesn't do that now. Yeah.
So there's quite a lot to unpack, but for me to start with, what you maybe want to try is, so you wouldn't leave this training in real life. You wouldn't try this, you know, say that there's an actual stranger at the door. That's not when to train the dog. You'd want to set stuff up to train the dog. So whether you get a pal coming around or even someone in the household just to go out and ring the doorbell, and all you're doing is you're wanting to bring the association of the doorbell ring with calm and going to bed. So you would get someone to go out, ring the doorbell, get the dog to the bed, but insist that she goes to the bed. And then nothing has to happen after that. Then you can go back to her and release her. And then the same again, get them to go out and ring the doorbell. And the more times you do that, then the less sensitive she'll be to the doorbell. So if you do that 100 times over a week and there's only actually 2 strangers that come to your door, then she's not really going to be that bothered about the doorbell, right? So you have to put the time in out with the real life, if that makes sense.
Yeah, but I think the issue there would be having someone ring the bell that many times a day.
Is it a doorbell that you can take off like one of these portable ones?
No, it's on the front door.
All right, so for me, if I was in the house on my own, I would just go to the front door, ring the doorbell, go to the dog, and put the dog in the
Oh
bed.
right, okay, yeah. That
And all
makes
you're doing is you're showing the dog that there's nothing to be excited about when this noise goes off. All that's going to happen is I'm going to put you in your bed and then I'll release you when I'm ready.
okay.
And
Yeah, I
if
can
you
do
get
that.
if you get
that.
plenty of reps of that in, when the doorbell actually goes, the ritual is just go to bed. But don't try and train her in real life situations because you'll be in a hurry you'll let her away with more because you'll be in a hurry to actually answer the door.
Answer the door, yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah, I mean-
anytime you pass the front door, I would just be opening the front door, ringing the doorbell, and then just putting on her bed.
And it's true what Andy's saying, you know,
It's a good plan.
we prioritize when your doorbell organically goes, when somebody's actually ringing your doorbell, there's a few things that go on. First of all, what Andy's already covered, we don't do the dog training. We prioritize we've got to go to the door. So we act in a certain way, which is the same way all the time, going to the door. And we patch it over, stick the dog in the kitchen or whatever. And that's not training scenario. The other side of it though, Jill, I find is that the people coming through your door are training your dog. So what I mean by that is we've all got that family member or pal who comes in and goes, "Hey Otto, how you doing?" And let's get the energy up and let's get excited. You've got to control those people. And I say to clients, you know, if you've got a doorbell problem, and you've got your good friend Allan coming around for a cup of tea tonight or to watch the game or whatever, make that phone call first and say, Allan, see when you come around tonight, I need your help. And use that word. And Alan's going to say to you, of course, Jill, what can I do? When you come in, do not look at my dog, do not speak to my dog, do not get excited, pretend I do not have a dog in the house. And I might take a minute or two slower to come to the door because I'm actually going to be doing some training. It's important that the people coming through that door do not create this every time somebody comes through, it's a really exciting party. Because that's really what happens. And generally, I find people are too polite to their family members or their friends coming in the door not to actually say that.
Yeah, to be honest, it's normally like deliveries and things like that rather than people actually coming in, like postman, Amazon, that sort of thing. I mean,
Yeah.
she'll start barking when they pull on the drive.
Yeah, I mean, barking itself can be quite self-rewarding for especially German Shepherds. They get a thrill out of it. They build themselves up. So it's important that you maybe use a bit of negative pressure as soon as the dog builds itself. You know, it's harder to correct the dog when it's level 10, but if you can see the dog slowly building itself, that's the time to nip it in the bud.
Okay.
Okay, if you catch it early, you'll need less pressure to stop
Yeah.
the dog. Yeah, and it's just about getting the reps in. The more reps you can get in, the easier it'll be in real life.
Some people use you know, you can actually, if you find the particular noise that your doorbell makes, you might be able to find something on YouTube or Alexa or any of these kind of technical things that you're actually sitting in your armchair and you can create that noise somehow in your home.
Okay.
Your dog will initially go, shit, there's the door, and it runs to the door, but you act differently. You act like you've never heard that. In fact, my own dog just burst the door open. That's what I was talking about. But you understand, you know, to be able to do those reps, to be able to do those reps and act differently and concentrate on your dog training and desensitize, teaching the dog that every time that noise happens, it's no longer a party.
Yeah,
That's a wee tip that you might be able to try and find something that
Yeah.
sounds like your own
yeah, that's a
doorbell.
good
All right,
idea.
Joe.
Have a look.
Hope
Yeah.
that helps a little bit. Anything else we can help you with there?
No, that's fine. Thank you.
Cool. Thank you very much. Is there a Ross Ritchie here somewhere? We've got another. Is there a Ross Ritchie I'm looking for? I should be able to see that name, no problem at all. I can't see it anywhere. Can anybody else see a Ross Ritchie? Okay.
I don't see him. I don't think he's there.
No, okay. Well, it is recorded. Andy, I'm going to read this out. I've not actually read it through yet. Ross Ritchie's question is, hi, looking forward to this. My question is, have you, this is one that we kind of just touched on. Have you ever had a lab bitch after having a litter totally lose interest in working? She will go out for a dummy, but not like lightning, more like a trot. She marks, she will go out so far, then look back as if she's forgotten what to do. It's like having a 3-year-old pup. She was a great worker. I can still put out 3 dummies left far back, and she'll go and pick one up. And I tell her, I can't read this down, but it's well, okay. More or less what he's saying is that the dog is now really slowed its pace. It's not as keen. It's a 3-year-old dog. It sounds like it was working well before, but since she's had this litter and the pups have all gone, the pups, she says that the pups have left 4 months ago, apart from one which is kept. So a bit of a strange one that, and obviously with Ross not being here, we'd like to sort of go into more detail, but I don't think he's
Unpack it a bit, but I mean, I've personally not had bitches change that much over litters, but I have heard of them. I mean, to be honest, I've heard more of the bitches are better after a litter, to be honest, rather than the other way. It's difficult without maybe unpacking it with Ross. But for me, I would probably give her a bit more time off. So I would forget about the retrieving because you'll just end up boring her even more. So, you know, I'd put everything away. So when you bring it back out, it's a bit more special. And I'd start trying to build the drive again, maybe in 2 or 3 weeks' time. But I definitely wouldn't do anything that resembles work out with work. So, you know, you might find that he's throwing tennis balls just when he's walking the dog and the dog's retrieving that. And then when he goes out and does formal training, it's kind of the same. So he's maybe asking the dog to retrieve as well. So is he doing something that resembles the training out with training and it's maybe just too much for the dog?
Yeah,
It's
that's
hard
good
to
advice.
know. You know, it's hard to know without maybe unpacking it with Ross, but she maybe just needs a bit more time.
Yeah, okay. So Ross, if hopefully you're going to send this to you on record, but I think what Andy's more or less saying is give your dog a little bit of downtime. Sometimes that's good for most dogs. Just, I mean, at this time of season, if your dog is a working dog, we're at the closed season anyway, but just give your dog a bit of downtime and let her kind of fully, I won't say recover from her litter, but just let her come back a bit. And if you experience that problem, if it continues after a good period of rest, then get in touch with Andy again. In fact, Dave, if Dave, you're able to put up in the chat, can you put in Andy's website in the chat box for me, please? Somewhere down here. Where am I? We'll be sending this to everybody anyway, but Honoris Gundogs. Andy, your what's your full address? honorisgundogs.co.uk.
Yeah, honorsgundogs.com.
Okay, there it is. So thanks, Dave, for popping that up. Hope everybody can see that. That's Andy's website. So if anybody has particular questions about gun dogs, then obviously go straight to him anytime you like after this. All right. Okay, unless there's anything else, if anybody's got any specific questions that are here, then you can either stick your hand up or unmute yourself. Just start talking and I'll find you on the camera and we can open it up. Anybody at all? I'll let's flick over to this other screen. Wow. Okay, that's really surprising. Have nobody got any questions?
Yeah, I have a question.
Oh, perfect. Who's we've got iPhone here.
Yeah, so it's Nick. It just comes up as iPhone. Yeah, so I've got a 16-month-old border collie. She's really good and she's doing well with her training, but she reacts a lot to cars on the lead, and I'm struggling to get her to stop doing that. She had a bit of context to that as well. When she was 6 months old, she had an accident with a car, but it's kind of made her worse, not better. So yeah.
So prey drive is really heavy in collies. Is she from working stock, the collie, or?
She's from show, so she's her mom and dad actually were
Show dogs,
like agility dogs. So they did
right,
shows and stuff. Yeah.
So they're very prey animals, and you can imagine like the speed and the movement of cars really take a fancy when it's collies. So for me, it's about starting at a distance and getting the behavior at a distance, and then just working your way in. I've not found a positive only fix for collies. So if she's genetically programmed with high prey drive, you're going to really struggle to fix it with positive only. And what I mean by that is, a lot of positive only trainers would maybe advise marking the behavior when she doesn't do it and then rewarding. But she's going to want to chase things. So if she sees something moving fast, that's going to get her attention. And it's very hard to reward her when she's not doing it because she'll probably always do it. Is that right?
Yeah.
So, which is why negative pressure's important. So you have to apply some sort of negative pressure, and you would start at a distance. So what distance does she normally start taking a fancy to traffic?
Oh, it's a way off. So I mean, if she sees a car from 200 meters, she'll get straight down into the lie down position, head low, as if as soon as this comes any closer, I'll start reacting.
Are you allowing her to go into that position?
It depends on the context of where I am and stuff. So I'm in the army. I'm all different places all the time. So if I'm somewhere where I can control it, move her away, get her distracted, then I'll deal with it. But sometimes in close proximity to cars, I can't. Yeah.
Yeah, it's difficult because sometimes wherever you are, you need to pass traffic, right?
Yeah.
Which doesn't help because every time she rehearses it, you're going back on yourself.
Yeah.
In an ideal world, you would live somewhere nowhere near cars and you would take 300 meters.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's difficult because every time she gets to rehearse it, then you're just ingraining that behavior.
Yeah.
So you just need to do what you can. But for me, negative pressure has only ever worked. So I've had strong genetics and strong sort of sheepdog genetics, and I've never managed to fix it without negative pressure. So you have to
Okay.
you have to apply some sort of correction when the dog is building on that prey drive to tell the dog, you know, you have to make it uncomfortable for the dog to enter that prey drive.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
I can tell you how strong the fight that you have, because many years ago I had a lady who booked a one-to-one with me in Glasgow. I was through that kind of living through the West Coast, and she booked a one-to-one with me, and she cancelled it sometime later for personal reasons. She booked another one, she cancelled it for some personal reasons. She booked another one, and then the night before that one-to-one, she phoned me to say, Alan, I'm really sorry to have to cancel this again, but my colleague got run over by a bus today. It's in the Dig Vet in Glasgow. And I thought, holy hell, what? Because it was, you know, chasing cars, exactly what you're describing.
Yeah.
And I said, well, that's really sad to hear. Can you keep in touch with her? I hope your dog's okay. She called me a week later, and I still to this day I remember it. She called me a week later to say, Alan, I can't believe that the dog went completely under the full length of the bus, and it got away with grazies, a couple of stitches, and some bruises. However, can I book another one-to-one? I went, okay. She says, I'll tell you why, because I took it out for a walk today and it wanted to chase a bus. Now, if you think about it, if you've been run over by a bus, the last thing you want to do is go anywhere near a bus. However, the prey drive that Andy was talking about is so strong in these dogs that no problem, we'll just do that again. That was great fun, that kind of attitude. It's crazy.
That's exactly what happened to us. So she, it's just a series of unfortunate events. But basically, we were on holiday for Christmas. She managed to open the door herself, get out, got ran over by a van. Just superficial damage, God knows how. We didn't even have to do a skin graft in the end, just on her paw. It just had no, but like, yeah, just still wants to chase cars. So
yeah, the problem is they'll satisfy themselves in prey drive, not the end result. So they'll be building and it's self-rewarding. So it's not about the end result as such, it's about the build-up. It's kind of like us going on a night out when we were younger, you know, going around to the lad's house, the build-up and all this. It's quite self-rewarding. It's not actually the main event, it's the thought of the main event, right? Which is why the negative pressure needs to come at the first point of that. You can't wait till the dog builds, because it's already been rewarded within that time. So you have to apply some sort of negative pressure as soon as the dog's shown any sign of that.
Yeah, so I've got a slip lead and I put a lot of try and pull her away, etc. But it doesn't really do a great deal. I mean, a loose idea I had, for what I know, was to try one of the noise collars that you press that gives it a sharp noise. But I don't know what you'd think about that.
So, you know, a lot of clients come to us saying, oh, we've tried the slip lead and that, but there's actually a knack to using the slip lead. And it's very difficult we would have to see what you're doing. But yeah, you can use slip leads. You can use anything as long as the dog experiences some sort of uncomfort as soon as it accesses that drive. And then what happens is the dog then thinks twice about accessing the drive. As Alan says, you know, it's not about correcting the dog at the end of it, because this dog's been run over, right? And then you think the dog off. It's self-rewarding during the drive.
Yeah. Okay.
And I just want to jump in there because Stuart McGonigal, did I get your second name right there? Sorry, Stuart. I know we've met before. You can just unmute yourself there, because the reason I've asked Stuart to unmute is because I've had a one-to-one with Stuart, and he's have been experienced with Flynn, your collie.
Yep, he's 14 months now. Yep, we ginger redhead, typical redhead, I think is the.
You're brave.
Yeah, we've all got ginger in us. We're all Scottish, Alan. We've all got ginger in us.
But Stuart, I mean, fence running. Let's talk about fence running, and a lot of people will maybe understand that. So, I think it was Nick that was there before, and his threshold he described about 200 meters. I.e., if I see whatever that dog wants to react to, with a dog, in this case, vehicles, cars, etc., that threshold was huge, and we want to try and work outside that threshold, is what Andy was saying. You'll work backwards and try and reduce that. And jump in where I'm wrong here, Stuart, was before when we had a one-to-one. I know you've been doing a lot of work because you're a clan dog member and have been for some time, but Flynn was actually having that free access to that beautiful big garden you had, and Stuart's garden was right next to a very busy road, which means the cars go fast, which means that speed is a real buzz to especially a collie. Not just collies, by the way, dogs that fence run. A dog on the other side, they run up and down and they bark and they bark. The freedom to be able to practice that behaviour is really what we've got to address. So is Flynn still having that freedom outside to be able to practice those behaviours?
He doesn't get free access to the garden now, Alan. It's only when supervised when we're in there, and he's more interested in what we're doing now than what he is chasing run up and down the fence.
So when you wrote to me, I actually only got your email on my phone when we actually started. So what is it that's going on? You said you've done a lot of work and you've obviously been doing a lot of things, but what's it you're still experiencing?
I think it's he's not got an off button, and I think I had a bit of realisation because you touched on it at the beginning of the webinar. I think it was Andy mentioned that we always felt guilty putting him in the crate, but I never looked at it as I'm putting him in there to go for like a sleep or a nap or switch him off. We always felt guilty and always tried to do enrichment or keep him busy or keep him in the house and give him free rein with the other two dogs. We separated them and they're now back together, and he is a lot better, but he just doesn't settle. He just doesn't switch off. You probably hear him yipping in the background, and that's him in the crate.
Yeah. I remember when I came, all the problems that we had about him, being in the living room with, etc. And we said start putting him in that sort of time out, not as a punishment, but just learn to do nothing type of thing. So is that still going on? Or have you kind of the other thing I was going to ask is your other guys do fly ball, which is high energy. Has he started doing that as well?
Alan, he had a bit of he's still reactive to other dogs. So he was fine when he was doing training on his own, but when we started introducing another dog, he was straight for the other dog. So we've kind of took a step back from it to try and get his reactive side of things to other dogs under control.
Okay, well, I will say if our dogs, ourselves included, if we're pumped full of adrenaline because we've got that high energy, that's not a thinking state of mind. So when our dog is naturally geared towards that high energy thing, we've got to pair that right back a bit to try and get them to understand the structure to this as well. So does that make sense to you, Stuart?
It does, it does. We just we were trying to think. We were guilty trying to get a quick fix, but it's not going to be. It's a long journey we're on, and he's a totally different, calmer, chilled out boy than what he was when you first met him, Alan. So
I mean, I think collies can be very difficult because the intensity that they bring is huge compared to most labs and spaniels. You can curb it, but the intensity some collies bring, I mean, they're serious about what they want. When they get in prey drive, they're serious. So I think it'll take a bit of time, but as long as you're doing the right things, you should be seeing progress along the way, which sounds like you are.
Yeah, 100%. Seeing these.
I don't mind admitting I've been training dogs professionally for many years. I don't know about you, Andy, but when I get a request for a one-to-one, I read it through and then you go to the bin, you go collie, I go,
Yeah, 100%. And do you know what my first question is normally is, so say they want this dog to be a social family pet. My first question is, did you pick this dog up from a farm?
Yeah.
Yep. And then, so what you're doing is you're fighting against the genetics of the dog the whole way.
Yeah.
If you want a pet, you need to go to pet lines. But maybe they went and picked up a farm. The two collies with your classic barking, antisocial, one-man dog collies, and then they're trying to make the offspring very social and calm and balanced. And it's, you can have that, but you've got your work cut out. Because you're fighting against the genetics, right?
For sure. It's not been the first time where I've had a client who's picked up, as you say, Andy, a dog from a farm for whatever reason they want to rescue, or it was the last in the litter, it was going cheap, doesn't matter what it is, but they end up with a working line collie and they live in the middle of the city. Some of them don't even have transport. They step outside their door and they're right in the middle of Edinburgh. And I've got to try and find them a training ground, and they can't even get to the training ground because they've got to walk past the exciting place first, and the dog's already high as a kite before it gets there. So these are real very real challenges. And I don't mind saying, but you know, dog trainers, we would all love to have that sort of magic wand and want to fix everything, and sometimes we can help and create very quick fixes, but there's certain cases that really are long term.
Yeah, especially when it comes to the genetics of the dog.
For sure.
That's when you've got your work cut out.
But listen, Stuart, if you have any sort of serious reservations or whatever, drop me an email at some point, whatever, and we can pick it up again, mate, and have a good sort of in-depth chat, okay?
Allan, know where you are. Yeah.
Thanks, man. There was a lady with a little hand up a minute ago, and I've seemed to have lost her. I think it was a Lorna or Lorna. She may have gone, maybe not. Okay, she's maybe left, I'm not sure. Okay. If there's anybody else with any questions, now's the time to sort of jump in. Well, there's quite a lot of stuff sitting in the bottom here. I don't know how to see that. There we go. Chat 16. Where did I see that? Right, okay. This is me. I'll tell you right now, folks, I'm not an IT person, and I'm just trying to see something through here. So if anybody can see the chat, I've got Lorna, how to reduce overexcitement and encourage neutral play with others. I don't know if you mean other dogs or other humans there or whatever, Lorna, and I think you've maybe left there. Dave has put in Andy's website there for anybody to see. Obviously, we could go on forever here, folks, but obviously Andy and I are here to help you, so feel free to contact us separately anytime. Marnie's away. I have a 6-month-old cocker looking for suggestions how to stop him jumping up on people. Okay, do you want to quickly cover that one, Andy?
Aye, so a 6-month-old cocker.
Yeah.
The problem is, as Allan mentioned earlier, was strangers are very bad at training your dog. So what's probably happened from a young age is the puppy, when it's very cute, has ran over to, you know, someone that's come into your house, it's jumped up, and then guess what happens? Oh, your dog's so cute. And then there's plenty of fuss and praise that comes from that. So the strangers have probably not helped training your dog, right? So what you need to, as Allan said earlier, you need to get people that come into the house on board. So as soon as the dog displays that, and what I normally do is I have a lead on the dog, like a house line, I call it. So it's not a slip lead, it's just on the collar. And just make sure you're watching the dog at any time, just so it doesn't get caught up. But if you're expecting someone at the door, just make sure that they come in, they ignore the dog. If the dog jumps up, you've got the line there, and you can just correct the dog off as soon as it jumps up. Once the dog displays some sort of calmness, that would be the time that then the guests can then interact with the dog. But if you imagine it from the dog's point of view, I bet you as soon as someone comes in the house, then the praise happens, the dog jumps up, more praise happens, and the strangers will maybe even say it's fine, that I don't mind them jumping up, I love dogs, and then the praise comes. So as Allan mentioned earlier, strangers have probably not helped the situation. What do you think, Allan?
Yeah, absolutely. I always find that, and I always say to people, it can be sometimes, I express it as being over polite to our friends and loved ones. You know, you've got to get serious with them, because somebody can really undo your good work. And I'll give an example. I like to take Otto. He's now 13. You know, he's retired from actual work or whatever, but I do like to take him because he can go for a pint, go for a coffee, dog-friendly bistro or whatever. And I had a lovely lady. She had a wine or two on board, and Otto looks like a big ginger teddy bear, so people want to say hello to him. And she came across and said, you know, can I see your dog? I said, absolutely. And she stood and said, and she was asking him, encouraging him to jump up. And I very politely said, no, don't ask him to do that. He wouldn't anyway, but she didn't understand why. She wanted to give him a big hug up here, sort of thing. But I just had, and she kept trying to say it, and I really had to say, I can ask you just not to do that. And a lot of people might be reticent to say to somebody, would you mind not doing that? And, you know, you can get the message across in a polite way. I had another guy who came across, and he had a young lad in the restaurant with him. He's a young boy. He was only about 5 or 6 years old, and said, is your dog okay with kids? Can my wee boy clap your dog? I said, absolutely, he's bomb-proof. So the wee guy clapped Otto, and the guy said, thank you. And he said to his son, give the doggy a crisp. Yeah, the wee guy had a bag of crisps in his hand. And he said, give the doggy a crisp. And I said, nah, he doesn't. He said, but they're only plain crisps. The guy he had a good heart in him, but he didn't understand that, you know,
Yeah,
I've trained my dog not to take food from people. So they perhaps mean well, and they
Yeah.
don't understand. It's like somebody coming into your home and chucking you a load of young kids, a load of Smarties and sugar, and leaving you with a problem later on. So
Yeah.
be firm but fair, I prefer to say. Is listen, take it seriously and say, listen, please don't do that when you come in, because it is other people who, as Andy said, they're rewarding it. You might even get dog lovers out in the park. They've got their own dog, they've got sweeties in their pocket, and because they've got their dirty dog walking trousers on, your dog jumps up and they go, no, that's okay, as Andy said already, and they reward the dog with a clap or a titbit. And then that dog who doesn't know it's got dirty feet will jump up, and the lady, and actually witnessed this many years ago in Trinity, her and her husband, I presume, were going to a party. She's dressed beautifully in white, and somebody's spaniel came out the muddy pond and went up and just said hello all over her, and that was a very exciting scene, shall we say. So
Yeah.
there's a more serious aspect to it. Other people will undo a lot of your good work, so please don't allow them to do it, is the kind of what I'm saying there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'm just looking through any more questions here, Andy. Deborah Nixon, where would be a good place to start for a novice gun dog owner in Fife? Ha! Right there, Andy.
Well,
My
must be
lab and I
neighbours.
have basics, but we'd like to do it regularly as a group with like-minded people. And that is from a Deborah Nixon. Deborah, there you are. Deborah, you're there. Do you want to unmute your... There you go. I'll let you speak to Andy because he's your man on your doorstep.
I've pestered you a couple of times, Sandy, but I appreciate that it's been working season over the last wee while.
No, have you?
Um,
Now? Have you
we-
been over? Have we met?
I haven't met you, no.
No.
I'm keen to get something set up. So
Yeah.
my lab is 2-year-old. We've been working together, just picking up what we could. We've done a few dummy retrievals, and he's very good at it. And we went along to what's the right way to say it? I went along to a friend's session, but they seemed to be more professional, shall we say. And
Right.
at the time, he still had his bits and he was a bit of a singer. So we were
Right.
asked to leave.
All right.
So I'd quite like to go to a group that's maybe wanting to do it for fun, not necessarily bothering anybody who needs to do it professionally
Yeah.
for work and stuff.
Yeah, and to be honest, there is groups out there specifically for that. I mean, we run groups like that, but not that often. But what I would also recommend is some one-on-one time. So just to add the polish, and then you would go away and practice it. So then when you do go out in a group, then you're better prepared, sort of thing. But there's also it's worth speaking about it. So you've probably heard of Gundog tests before, which is simulated.
How do you
tests.
get in?
Yeah,
Where
so-
do you start?
Yeah, it's pretty easy to get in, but there's two types of gun dog tests. So that there's non-KC tests, which is more for fun, which aren't as the rules aren't as harsh. So Galloway gun dogs, and even if I think Graham Wilson is somewhere on the chat here as well, he used to run a non-KC club as well. They're great to start with because it's not serious, it's just a bit of fun, and to be honest, 90% of the dogs is pets. So Galloway Gundogs, that's one to register interest with.
Really?
Yeah, and then it'd be worth going along to some KC tests just to have a look at the standard. But certainly I would mix your training up between sort of group training, and it's still important to get one-to-one so you can really sort of work on the sort of individual issues. But if you keep an eye on my Facebook page, we sometimes run the odd gun dog class, but it's not a regular thing, to be honest. But yeah.
I don't think it's the dog that's a problem. It's probably me that needs sharpening up.
That's not, to be honest, that's normally the case. Normally, a lot of dogs that come to us, they're superb, but it's just trying to get the owner on board of what's actually going on,
I think the vast majority of work that Andy and I do, I think we both probably say, the vast majority of the work is actually training the human, because when, as I said before, is that when you realise that you are the trainer on a daily basis, and there's not much point any dog trainer come along and say, there's your dog trained, and hand it to them. I used to have a dog training school, and people say, keep my dog for a week or a fortnight or a few months and hand me back a trained dog. But every one of them would phone me within a week, 10 days, and say, the dog's not doing this anymore. When I broke it down, I thought, hang on. So yeah, I concentrate on the other end of the lead. All right, so good. Okay, I've got a message, another question here from Sarah. How do you stop a dog with strong prey drive hunting too far away from you?
What kind of dog is that?
They don't say, just say that.
If it's a pointer, that you're fighting against genetics for a start.
Exactly. So I don't know if we've got a, just
Is
got
she- is
Sarah
she-
here. I
is
don't know
she
if there's
here?
a Sarah who's still here or she's left. I can't see anybody. Again, these are the sort of things that Andy and I would probably have to sort of pick away, knowing the type of dog, kind of training you are, Sarah. But listen, if you get this in recorded message, feel free to contact us later on if you have gone already. Karen's saying I
Oh
haven't.
wait, so I think, did I see a wee message there saying it's a Brittany Spaniel?
I'm just looking through
It's
the
a
list.
Brit, yeah, so I'm assuming she's going a Brittany Spaniel. So for me, so if I'm hunting a Spaniel, I always make sure that they find, so if I'm hunting for tennis balls, I always make sure that they find the reward within 2 or 3 meters of me. So for example, if I sent you personally out to look for $50 bills on the ground and they were always within 2 or 3 meters of me, guess where you would hang out? You would hang out next to me, right? So it's important that you don't let your dog go too far out and then find maybe a pheasant or find something good further away from you. You always want to let the dog find the good stuff right next to you, basically.
That's a good point, because you'll see these guys, the professionals, and who are working dogs all the time, they will keep that dog close to them, okay, rather than sending them too far out.
Yeah.
So the reward is, what Andy's saying is, the reward is close to me. You don't need to go there. All the gold's around me.
Yeah.
I hope that helps a little bit. Okay. Brian Buchanan, quick question on being reactive with cars. 6-month-old cocker who is nervous around cars, getting over that, but now on occasion will get spooked. Difficult to calm them. Again, we kind of covered that a little bit, Brian, with regards to finding your dog's threshold, giving their confidence, changing their emotional response to cars, and getting the dog's confidence up. It doesn't sound like the reaction, it sounds like they're a wee bit more spooky.
Sorry, it is spooked. And my question was sort of around that, but it's more that just on occasion now, someone will really rattle on a motorbike or a car with a particularly loud exhaust. And it's just trying to get him back in a sort of a state where he's listening to you and he's switched back on again, because he gets so nervous without, and I'm really wary about trying to then enforce this is the behavior I want by trying to calm him. So it was just, when that happens to him, he gets a bit scatty. What is the most effective way just to bring him back down again so we can just proceed?
One thing I would say, when you picked up, I just picked up the word trying to calm them, because I find that a lot of people will accidentally reward an emotion or a behaviour, and we want to be able to reassure or calm our dogs. So, for example, if a dog becomes spooked, a lorry runs over a drain or a siver and it goes bang, and we want to say, you're okay, and what we mean is, don't worry about it. But what the dog actually receives is that message of, that's the way to feel. Do you understand what I mean by that? It's a hard thing, because we want to,
Yeah.
our human natural behaviour is want to relax and say it's okay, and sometimes.
Yeah, we'd had a dog before, and I don't want to reward that behavior. I was just wondering if there was any tips to not reward it, try and not acknowledge it, but just get them to sort of to come back down again, because the walk can just become a nightmare at that point.
So what you're looking at is a faster recovery rate, right?
Yeah, because otherwise I have to stand for 5 minutes waiting until he
but
just sorts himself out.
I think you come for training anyway.
Yeah, we do, yeah.
Yeah, you come so your dog's very young, right? What, 6, 7 months?
Yeah, it's just coming up on 7, yeah.
Yeah, so he's very young, and at that age they can get spooked quite easily. So it's about learning the dog to cope, right? So for me, I would be going out and looking for more of that noise, but I wouldn't be asking the dog of anything, and I wouldn't be rewarding the dog. I wouldn't be speaking the dog. Everything would be neutral. All I'm looking for within that training session is for the dog to cope with those noises.
Right, okay.
So I wouldn't avoid them. That's the worst thing you could do. But I would try and get him more used to it. And I wouldn't worry about the recovery rate yet, because he's still a baby, he's still unsure. I had a pup once that was scared of the kitchen fan, the extractor fan. And I'm not joking, it took every day, it was about 2 months every day. And I persevered with that dog. And eventually the fan went on and he didn't even wake up. It's going to take a bit of time just to get the recovery there, but he will, if you expose him and keep exposing him, showing him that he's not going to die as soon as he hears his voice, it'll gradually disappear. But don't reward him, don't speak to him, don't ask him of any, don't ask the dog of anything, because he's not in that open mindset for communication,
Right. Okay. Yeah.
All you
Yeah,
want
it
to
makes sense.
be doing is just learning the dog to cope.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. Was there a quick fix to that recovery time? But no, there's
quite
not.
Quite often in dog training is not a quick fix. That's the annoying thing about dogs. That's why patience is a key component for dog training, right, Alan?
Absolutely. I always not cringe a little bit, but I'm sure you're the same, Andy. There are occasions where, depending on the human, depending on the dog, age, breed, what the problem is, the biggest thing is there are occasions where somebody might have just one session with a professional trainer, and we're able to send them off with the right ammunition, knowledge that they go away and they're happy that we never need to see them again. And they'll leave us a lovely review saying, "Can't believe it. Had one session with Allan, and that's my dog fixed." And I think, oh no, because what happens is that everybody thinks, well, I'll just go to this guy and it'll just be a quick fix. And that's just not the case. So the vast majority do need longer term work, and it's a work in progress for all the time. And once I always say there's no such thing as a trained, as in past tense, dog, because once you have all the skills with a dog, no matter what you want them to do, it then goes to describing training as maintenance, as opposed to, we don't park it. So some people have the attitude, well, I went to puppy courses or I went to any kind of course and that's it, finished. When in actual fact, you're living it, you're training it all the time. So, just be aware of that, and don't look at your dog training as a chore or a nightmare or whatever. It's okay to have down days. I can't be bothered. I'm not in the right frame of mind. I'm stressed, or I've got life getting in the road. That's okay. That's not the time to be doing dog training. Look at it as more of a living with your dog, and that's the best way to do it. And when you're actually doing training sessions, I always say that short and often. If you're a 24/7 dog trainer, you've got that luxury of time to say, right, I'm going to take my dog out for 5 or 10 minutes every hour of the day. Now, I know that in reality, everybody's got work, we've got kids, and we've got all manner of things to do. But rather than say, well, I'm busy during the week and I'm going to do 2-3 hours on a Saturday, 2-3 hours on a Sunday, that's not really the way a dog learns. It's actually just kind of living it all the time,
Yeah. And Brian, your pup is I wouldn't be worried about your pup. He's a super dog. I would treat that as an individual session. So how we spoke about you're going to go out and work on different things. For me, I would say, okay, well, I've got a spare half an hour. I'm just going to go and stand by the road at whatever distance you need to be, just to make the dog a wee bit uncomfortable, but enough that he can come through it and cope and recover. And I bet so forget about all the other training when you're doing this. Your training then is just coping training. And you can keep the dog moving up and down, but all you're trying to show the dog is that noise isn't going to kill you.
Right, okay.
Once you get the reps in on that, then it'll just fade away.
Yeah, that's a good shout. It is. I'll pick Fairweather and go out and do that, because he just chooses when it's piss and rain to get spooked, and then I'm stood for 5 minutes waiting for him to calm down.
You need to do it in piss and rain then, if that's when he gets spooked.
And on that note, Brian, when it is pissing and rain, if you think about it, when a car goes down the road at 30 mile an hour in the dry, it's actually a different noise when the car goes down at 30 mile an hour in the rain. It's that
100%, yeah.
The same as when a dog reacts to a 2-stroke motorbike. It's just that kind of different noise. So, and always, for everybody here, no matter what you're training, always try and finish that short training session on a good note rather than force it. Oh, my dog's doing okay, I'll take it a bit closer. Don't force it. Little baby steps, little increments all the time is the best way to go. Okay.
Perfect. Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, folks. Folks, just before we kind of wrap up, I think I've been through all the list of questions. I hope that I've covered everybody's question. I've put a link up in the chat box there. I don't know if anybody can see it. And really what we're doing is we're trying to help as many people as possible. So what we're offering is a 7-day completely free trial with Clan Dog. There's no obligation to stay. If you want to join up, it'll give you up to 30 plus training videos within that resource. You can contact us. You'll be invited to the private Facebook page as well. If you cancel on day 6, that's cool. Get in, look at all the training videos that might be pertinent to you. If you want to cancel on day 6, that's fine. If you want to stay, obviously you're welcome to do so. The link's up there for you. Okay, you'll find it on the Clan Dog website as well. Anybody who wants more specific questions on gun dogs or reactiveness, or I don't know if there's anybody here doing protection stuff, Andy's your man, so you'll find them on honorisgundogs.co.uk. Is that right, Larry, Andy?
Yeah, or if it's protection dogs, it'd be protectionk9scotland.co.uk.
Okay, there's Andy's link that's popped up as well. Okay, the other thing is to know that Andy's across, you're near Dunfermline, aren't you, Andy?
Yeah, Fife, Dunfermline, yeah.
Andy's got his Freedom Field, an enclosed space, a facility that I don't have. And then from time to time, he runs small classes as well. So have a look at his Facebook page as well. Andy's there to help you as well. Okay, folks. If there's any last minute questions just now, just please let us know. If not, we'll think about wrapping it up. And I'll say thank you to everybody for coming along tonight. We'll send this recording to everybody. Did somebody jump up there? Just heard a little noise, wasn't sure. Maybe not. Okay, so we'll send this recording to everybody tomorrow, and if everybody wants to go through it and listen to it again, then you're welcome to do it. Okay, but Andy and I are here to help. If you need to contact us, you know where to find us. Okay, folks. Thank you very much for coming along tonight. I hope that's helped a lot of people. And if we see you again, thanks very much. Okay. Thanks very much for tonight, Andy. Really helpful.
Thank you.
And we'll talk again soon, mate. Okay.
See you soon, mate. Cheers.
Thanks, folks. Good night. Have a good evening.
Cheers.
Cheers.
See you now. Bye-bye.